Chinese singer Kris Wu accused of using bots. Canadian Chinese singer Kris Wu has been accused of using bots to boost his new album sales on iTunes. According to Variety, Wu's latest album, Antares, was released on November 2nd in the US. Then suddenly on Monday, November 5th, 7 of the album's songs shot up into iTunes' top 10. The little-known artist outside of China initially bumped Ariana Grande and Lady Gaga off the top spots. A since-deleted tweet from Ariana Grande manager Scooter Braun accused the Chinese singer and his team of using bots to game the iTunes system. Bots are algorithms that can generate automated clicks to inflate streaming numbers and sales figures. Wu has 158,000 followers on Twitter, which is blocked in China, but 45 million followers on China's Weibo, so the numbers could be organic. However, according to Variety, an insider told them that following patterns of high-volume purchases on iTunes of Antares, Wu's album sales were acquired fraudulently and will not count toward the iTunes sales chart, reported to Nielsen. China, number 4. Google to go ahead with censored China search engine. Google CEO Sundar Pichai confirmed this week the company has decided to kowtow to Beijing by building and testing a censored search engine. First reported by The Intercept in August, Google's Project Dragonfly would block search results for queries the Chinese regime deems sensitive. So terms like human rights, democracy, religion, peaceful protests, and of course Taiwan would all be censored, in addition to all other silly things the Chinese government gets their feelings hurt over. Pichai announced the massive sellout at Wired's 25th anniversary summit in San Francisco. Pichai claims a censored Google search engine could serve over 99% of queries in China. Unfortunately, for a country with 1.3 billion people, that remaining 1% could still be an astronomical number. According to CNBC, the CEO said that in any country that Google operates, it must balance its values, providing users access to information, freedom of expression, and user privacy, with obeying the local laws. Well, since the CCP values absolutely none of those things, that's really not much of a balancing act, is it? What's even more interesting is that while Google decided not to renew a Pentagon AI drone deal because of staff backlash, it's more than willing to ignore staff protests this time around. Pichai claims it is still very early and that Google hasn't decided yet if it's going to roll out Dragonfly in China. But honestly, does anyone actually believe Google will help protect the privacy and identities of Chinese citizens that ruffle Beijing's feathers? Who knows? Maybe Google should just design a Google Maps especially for Xi the Pooh and his thugs. China doubles down on Uyghur crackdown. Beijing has massively upped security expenditures in Xinjiang, where it's reported to have detained ethnic Muslim minorities. An analysis of Chinese government budget by a U.S. think tank revealed that spending on security-related construction in Xinjiang rose by 213% in 2017. The spending pattern is consistent with the construction and operation of highly secure political re-education camps meant to detain Uyghurs. Mass disappearances of Uyghur minorities since 2017 likely resulted in imprisonment in these camps, where former detainees say they had to endure intense political and cultural indoctrination. But while prison spending increased by 94%, formal prosecution stagnated, indicating that many are detained without a trial or with minimal due process. China claims the institutions are vocational training centers, but figures show vocational spending in the same year actually decreased by 7%. The country's human rights record is set to be reviewed by the UN Human Rights Council, which is expected to focus on its treatment of minorities like Uyghurs and Tibetans. China and Russia listening to Trump's iPhone calls. It appears that President Donald Trump continues to use unsecured iPhones to talk to his pals instead of using a secure White House line. According to the failing New York Times, Trump has a penchant for using 3 different iPhones. 2 of them have been altered by the NSA to be a bit more secure, while the third is a personal phone. According to anonymous current and former officials, since none of the 3 phones are totally secure, Chinese and Russian spies have allegedly been listening in. It looks as if the Chinese believe that by gathering a list of Trump's personal friends, they'll somehow be able to influence the reality president's stance on things like the ongoing trade war. Good luck with that. Of course, the Russians didn't want to let the Chinese have all the fun, so they too have been dropping in for a listen. Fortunately for the US, most of Trump's conversations are relatively surfacey, and his lack of interest in classified briefings probably means no secrets are getting spilled. Naturally, Trump fired back at the New York Times over Twitter, calling the report fake and saying he preferred using government-authorized hardlines. Unfortunately, that tweet was sent over an iPhone. Oops. Chinese formerly missing megastar fined for tax fraud. A super-duper megastar whom most people outside of China have never heard of, Fan Bingbing, has been fined around $129 million for tax evasion and other charges. According to the BBC, Fan was part of a government probe into how celebrities reported earnings in their contracts. Apparently, it's common practice in the land of corruption to use yin-yang contracts, where one contract has the actor's real earnings and another contract with a lower figure. The contract with the fake earnings is then sent in for taxes. Fan posted a long apology over China's intranet, where she also had to give a lame shout-out to the CCP, saying, "With the good policies of the party and the state, and without the love of the people, there would be no Fan Bingbing." The Chinese regime has now ordered Fan and the companies she controls to pay the enormous sum in taxes, fines, and penalties. So, what's the lesson here? If you want to get away with corruption or tax evasion in China, you better be a part of the Chinese Corruption Party. Sorry, Chinese Communist Party. Duh. China using debt diplomacy to spread global reach. Lesson 1. Never trust China. Lesson 2. Never take Chinese money. China has been accused of leveraging massive loans to smaller developing countries in order to take over assets and construct military bases in said countries. According to the Center for Global Development, in a practice referred to as debt trap diplomacy or debt colonialism, huge loans are given to countries that will be unable to repay, forcing smaller countries to surrender assets and territory when the loans default. Infrastructure loans to build roads and ports linked to the Belt and Road Initiative have led to countries owing millions or billions in debt, often accounting for large percentages of the country's GDP. According to The Times, China may be looking to leverage its debt in the Pacific in order to increase its military footprint in the South Pacific. In April, China informed Vanuatu that it had intentions of building a military base. Vanuatu now owes $246 million to China. Other countries like Pakistan, Djibouti, Fiji, Montenegro, the Maldives, Kyrgyzstan, and Laos all owe China massive amounts of money. Can Chinese debt take over the world? China wants to track all cars with RFID chips. People in the Chinese government are probably the only people in the world who read George Orwell's 1984, if they can find a copy, and say, Oceania sounds like a nice place. They have so much freedom. The Chinese Communist Party is planning to track all new cars using RFID chips in a voluntary program that begins on July 1st. That will become mandatory by 2019. According to the Wall Street Journal, China's Ministry of Public Security and the ministry's Traffic Management Research Institute is working on the new tracking system. Chinese officials claim that windshield RFID chips will help the government study and improve congestion, thereby reducing pollution. Officials claim another goal is to help combat the rise of vehicular terrorist attacks. So basically, this is just another surveillance program to keep China's 1.3 billion bees buzzing in perfect oblivious harmony and has nothing to do with cutting down pollution. The system will not be able to locate a car like GPS, and it's unclear how much citizen information will be stored on the chips beyond car color and license plate. Maybe China should just start implanting tracking devices into all of its citizens.